Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Norway Chess 2026, and more importantly, welcome back to 10 days of Magnus Carlsen on different characters that may or may not be real in the thumbnails. In today's video, I will be showing you Magnus Carlsen versus Vincent Keymer. It's Magnus's worst tournament in 10 years, and that's just the storyline of the event. That's really what it is. It is Norway Chess. I already said, I think I said, don't remember, not going to restart the intro, but it's an annual event where the format is you play a classical game, and if it ends in a draw, you then play a bonus game. No other tournament really has this format, and Magnus lost 3 out of the first 5 rounds. And the truth is, anytime he plays in an event, that's going to be the story, whether he's winning it or whether he's losing. So we are on the comeback journey. Magnus looking to win in the classical section against every single opponent, and his opponent for this round is Vincent Keymer, the German phenom, who opens the game with knight to f3. And this game gets off to a really ridiculous start. Magnus plays knight f6. You might be wondering, what on earth is ridiculous about copying your opponent? Magnus spent 3 minutes on that move. And then when Vincent Keymer went here, just trying to play bishop g2 and castle, which is called the ready opening, Magnus copied him again and spent 12 minutes and 46 seconds on this move. I don't think he has ever done that. I don't know what millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions, quintillions of variations that he was calculating. But man, I would love to know what goes on in the mind of somebody that good at chess for 12 minutes on the second move. I honestly think he had a little bit of analysis paralysis. Like, he copies Vincent because he's trying to think what openings Vincent is going to choose. And ultimately, Vincent goes here. Bishop g7, bishop g2, castles, castles. Oh, sorry. Vincent chose to play d4. It doesn't really matter. And Magnus employed the King's Indian defense. So an opening that has been played in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, a great opening, but an opening that is not seen as much in modern day because Black has much more solid options that the computer Stockfish gives the blessing to. However, Vincent committed a setup on the first 2 moves. Vincent played these 2 moves, which already give Black a lot of information because there are plenty of positions in the King's Indian defense. White never plays knight f3, and there's even more positions in the King's Indian defense. White doesn't play g3. So he gets a little bit of information, does Magnus, and now in the King's Indian, generally you play either e5 or c5. You have to play one of these 2 pawn breaks, right? He plays rook e8. It's quite clear he's trying to prepare this move, castles, and now he plays bishop to d7. And there is some lore about this very strange move. I actually prepared this move, bishop d7, some time ago. It's a very stupid little move. But it's got its practical ideas. Instead of moving the knight out and then trying to play in the center, you play bishop d7. It's very flexible, and in some positions you play queen c8 and you try to trade off White's light squared bishop. You make this little battery. So I have looked at this myself with Black. Now, fun fact, so did Magnus, but he couldn't remember with who. And David Howell, the commentator from England, super grandmaster and friend of Magnus Carlsen, you can decide which of those 3 is the most important. Would you rather be from England, 2700, or friends with Magnus Carlsen? He said he analyzed this with Magnus in a hot tub, and that is the lore. Incredible lore. Bishop to g5 is the move played by Vincent. He spends 20 minutes on this move because he obviously did not remember all the details of bishop d7. And now White has a choice. The best move is apparently h6, and now you will be really confused because Vincent goes here. So now it's like, well, why didn't Vincent just play bishop f4 to begin with? And the answer is, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue, because if you actually look at the top move of the computer, it's bishop f4. So Vincent goes here, and then is like, actually, I'm going to go to f4. And he's basically saying that pawn could now be a target, which wasn't there in the past. Now the computer wants to use h6 and play g5. Now, if you don't know this, if you haven't actually analyzed this prior, it's a little difficult to push pawns in front of your king like this, because they don't go backwards. I don't know if that's a newsflash to you, but then white can target them with h4 in the future, but it is what Stockfish wants because Stockfish is unafraid. Magnus, though, plays knight c6, and generally in King's Indian positions, if the knight is going to be attacked with the d-pawn and cannot move to the middle, it will go here. Now the knight pressures the pawn on c4, which white defends with b3. You will notice that when you play the move b3, you protect the pawn on c4, but you stop guarding the knight on c3. Continuity of the game as the game progresses. How does a piece move affect different pieces and different squares? That's all covered in How to Win a Chess Next Level, my intermediate book, available October 6, 2026. And now Magnus goes e5. Now, for the record, there is no real way to exploit this, because if you play a move like knight e4, that's very adorable, but this is a relative pin. It is a pin where, relatively speaking, I can't move my pinned piece, but I will if you give it to me for free, right? And then I will win back a knight and a bishop for the rook, and that will not be good. That's a very bad trade. So e5 is the move chosen in the game by Magnus. There is the King's Indian pawn break, d takes, bishop takes, and let me tell you something. If you ask me what type of a position you want to play for a win, this is it. I mean, it is a King's Indian where you haven't been blown off the board, and white is going to try to play e4, dominate the center. You're going to try to create some counterplay with black. Vincent goes knight here. The bishop moves back. He takes a lot of the center. Rooks are going to go in back of these pieces. White is going to have a very pleasant position, but black's position is very good. And before you know it, yeah, Magnus is using what he has. He's going to try to break apart the position. a5, a4 is fascinating pawn play. Chapter 2 of How to Win a Chess Next Level. I sent Magnus an early copy, all right, about pawn play and piece play. That is why he is so sharp with his outside pawn play. This move impacts the center, because if you play a4 and white takes, white shatters their structure forever. If they take with a knight, they stop guarding the middle of the board. And so a5 is almost always a useful move. Vincent plays h3, stopping anything from going to g4. a4 is on the board, and Magnus has finally equalized the game. He takes, he trades the rooks, and he plays h5, and he is hitting at the white position. I told you it's a little bit dangerous to push pawns where you've castled. The position is 0-0-0. The boys are down to, the second half of the game. But one thing that is precarious is Magnus's time. Yesterday, when he defeated Alireza Firouzja in a fantastic game of chess, he was up on time the entire game. Every round of this tournament that he has lost, he has been in a ridiculous time trouble. He has managed his time worse than I've ever seen him manage in covering games on this channel. He is consistently down 20 or 30 minutes on the clock, and I don't know why. Maybe analysis paralysis. I don't know. Vincent keeping everything very solid. Magnus now, though, taking over. Knight in the middle of the board. Very imbalanced game. Gets the king over to g8 to protect everything, and also actually to play knight h7 to get out of the way of some of the position. The queen goes to d8. Very flexible. Vincent now also trying to maneuver. Both guys can't really do much here with their pawns. It's very difficult to generate pawn play. Any pawn move for black weakens the position. Any pawn move for white weakens the position. And when you can't touch your pawns, it's very hard to play chess. You have to move around them, right? Like a little labyrinth. g5 is a nice idea to push the knight away. Now one pawn trade happens and the game begins to open up a little bit. But we are heading in a direction where there's going to be a lot of trades. The knight is traded, and this is Magnus's moment. Minus 0.5. He can play queen h4, activate the queen to the maximum capacity, all right? But then obviously, white is going to come over here and start to attack the pawns on this side of the board. So it's a very tough decision. 10 minutes on the clock, and Magnus in this tournament, when his time gets about 10 minutes, 5 minutes and less, has not made the most accurate, the most critical decisions. He has made mistakes. We've seen him play like a human being. So he goes c6, not the best move, relieving a little bit of tension in the middle of the board, and right here is the critical moment. Vincent plays rook f1. His rook is much better poised here on the first rank to defend everything, and Magnus has a moment here. His moment is that he can seal the position shut with the move c5. c5, you roll the dice, you don't have a lot of control of the game, but this is a very interesting move, because black in the long run has a pawn majority. He has a 2-on-1. He can go b5 and c4. And that could turn into something. You could get a passed pawn there. One thing that you don't have maybe is control of the e6 square. So there are some lines white can trade this bishop, do something like this, and in a lot of positions, maybe try to bring the knight right back exactly to where it was. But of course, Magnus would go here. And I mean, this looks like a position Magnus has spent his career beating people. So he has this one moment here to close the position, but he doesn't play it. And instead, he allows Vincent to keep things a little bit open like this. And this is just enough space open on the board to give Vincent an opportunity to liquidate. Magnus goes g5, Vincent goes f4, and now we're heading somewhere where the pawns are going to get off the board, the bishops, the knights, maybe the queens. And even though black has some type of an interesting position, you just don't have enough pieces, you don't have enough targets. That's really the problem, is like, you don't have enough stuff that you can attack because your stuff is also in the line of sight for white. It's minus 0.3, but this was the big moment that if Magnus was feeling good in the tournament, maybe he would have trusted himself to play c5. But again, that's the way it goes in tournaments like this, and any top-level tournament. That was the one chance, and ultimately, in the Classical, the game peters out into a drawn endgame. Even here, I would put Magnus... I put money on Magnus, like, maybe to put some pressure, but you have nothing here. Too many symmetrical pieces, too weak of a king. You're gonna trade everything, and the players agree to a draw, because there's only 2 pawns remaining on the board. Nobody is going to make a queen. My nose is itchy, as always, because that's the way it's been going during the seasonal allergies. However, what does this mean? This means we play Armageddon. So this means Magnus gets 7 minutes, Vincent gets 10, and if Magnus makes a draw, he actually wins the match, and he gets 1.5 points for the standings, which means that he would overtake Vincent. He would tie with Vincent for 9 points, and maybe get into 3rd place. So d4, c4, knight f3, and Magnus tries to play a line, which effectively kills off the game for black. Vincent says no, let's keep some pieces on the board. All right, Magnus making a few more trades. He's going to finish up his development here, makes another trade in the middle, and right here forces the issue with the move knight e4. Now, the best move in the position for black is to push this pawn forward. That's a very hard move to play because you just leave the queenside pawns in a lot of variations, but it does liquidate the position. Bishop g4 is another move where you trade the bishop, but then you attack the pawn on h2. He goes knight e4, and apparently it's a mistake because white can take the pawn with the queen. And the point is that there's a lot of tactics. The rook, the bishop, the knight, the queen, the rook is here as well. I'm not exactly sure what Vincent had calculated here, but this doesn't work. Knight g5, you know, with white, maybe there's queen b7, you win a second pawn. It's very sharp, it's obviously very messy, but maybe this is what you play for. And if queen d5 and black plays something like knight c3, white can play queen takes, rook takes, and ultimately in this position, you are up a pawn. You are just up a pawn. But in a moment of mutual trust, mutual respect, mutual blindness, maybe Vincent saw this, but this doesn't work. I don't know. I don't know what they both trusted each other. This is not the way, because after this, everything gets traded, and the bishops are of opposite color. Opposite colored bishops, relatively symmetrical structure. You are not beating Magnus. His rook and bishop completely dominate the white king, which can't even leave. Since the king can't leave, the rook can't leave. Total misery here. And in just a short while, the players make a draw, and Magnus wins in the Armageddon. Honestly, I would have loved if in the Classical he had played this move c5 and we got like a dynamic end to this game, but there is a legitimate chance he could have lost this, right? Because it's very sharp, very complex. And just because it says minus 0.4, it doesn't mean that it's very easy to, to land the plane. But Magnus takes down Vincent, and he is, crawling back into the tournament. Now, Pragg versus Firouzja. Firouzja has been leading the tournament throughout until yesterday. He is no longer in first place. It is now Wesley So, but he is still in second by a considerable margin. Okay, Pragg opens with e4. Alireza plays e5. We have an Italian. Now, d3 and a3 is weird. a3 is a weird move. This is some sort of modern cutting-edge Italian. Normally in the Italian, white plays c3, tries to play b4, d4, and after c4 also plays a4 and b4, right? Like the pawn is on a4. This is weird. Why do you play a3? Because you have some positions where white can actually castle queenside. There you go. a6 by black, bishop e3. a3, bishop e3 chosen by Pragg. Wow. Alireza plays d6. Already thinking on his own in the Italian, knight d2 and queen e2. So this is a very fascinating setup. I actually remember Hans Niemann played like this once, and there was a line where Hans Niemann castled long. Castling long would be bad in this position because black would immediately get play against the queen side. In that particular game, Maybe a 4-8. Maybe this was the position and white castled long. I don't exactly. Maybe white had a pawn on c3 already, but he castled long in that game. In this game, that doesn't happen. In this game, the players make a couple of trades of bishops, castle, and we get a totally different type of game like this, where white is going to try to exploit b5, d5, and f5. Black is going to try to exploit b4, d4, and f4. And obviously the damage structure here, black has like longer control over here. Maybe white will generate some good pawn play by moving the knights. That's what Pragg is going to try to do. There we see g3, king g2, nice simple improvement. b3, solid, rook a1. But if you never push a pawn again, you will never do anything here. The pawns have to be moved here, right? So knight h4, the pawns have to be moved. Rook d7, the pawns have to be moved. Knight e3, fine. Knight f3. Okay, it's actually Alireza who decides to start moving the pawns instead of Pragg. Pragg is just dancing around with his horses. Queen a1. At some point, Pragg's going to have to make a pawn move. There it is. There's the pawn move. The opening on the queen side has occurred. He can grab that pawn. He does. Pragg's like, I'm in last place. All right, I got to fight. I got to make these games messy. And now Alireza has infiltrated. The board has opened up because a couple of pawn trades have occurred. Knight f3, b4. Pragg is the one using... Alireza is the one using his pawns. But actually here... b4 allowing the queen into the game was inaccurate. Queen b7 allegedly was the move to open up problems over here, because if knight takes e5, there's the counterpunch knight takes e4, and this would be a fork, and black would very quickly get back in the game. But b4 allows white to have a little bit too much activity, and Pragg never looked back, even though his king is ridiculously placed. Alireza, for the second game in a row, yesterday against Magnus, today against Pragg, down about 20-30 minutes, and messing things up. Rook d4, not the best. Queen a7 has to be played. It does get played, but it's a very challenging position, and black does not have a lot of time. Alireza is very, very good at playing in low time, but ultimately the pressure will get to you. There's f4. I've been screaming for this move the entire recap. Rook a5 apparently a mistake, and before you know it, there's the vicious counter. Rook a1 is disgusting. Rook a1 appears on the board, even though it's only 0.6, you lose. You mentally lose the game. You play a move like rook a6, you think, oh, queen b5, rook a5. That's what you think. Rook a1 is disgusting. Rook a1 is a rook sacrifice. If you take the queen, I take your queen. Now, if you go here, I take the knight. And black has massive problems. The issue for black is that even though you're up material, the white king is so safe, and your pawns and your king are not safe at all. White is threatening knight t5, knight e7. White is threatening knight g4, knight h6. White is threatening the freaking rook. So rook has to go here, and Pragg doesn't even trade rooks. Why would you trade rooks? If you trade rooks, you lose an attacking piece. I'm going to go here. I'm going to open things up. I'm going to play f5. I'm going to play h4. Black needs two moves to get to the king, and that's not even enough. If you play queen a2, and I go knight g4, and you go here, that's adorable. I play knight h6, king h7, and I take another pawn. You check me. I can just go here. And if you go here, knight g5, and it's force mate. I either take the rook, or I mate you on g6 and then h7. Insane combination from Pragg, who ultimately gets a dominant positional advantage. And all these games come down to time trouble, but Alireza, 20 seconds on the clock, absolutely rolls the dice, loses the pawns, loses his king, queen d8, resigns, because here, rook e7. The leader of the tournament just dropped 6 out of 6 possible points by losing 2 games in a row. Pragg has 9 now, from last to third place tie. Firouzja's still in second because nobody is scoring that many points. No, he's not in... Yes, he is in second. Nobody has more than 10. So that's a massive, massive win for Pragg, and everybody in this tournament is beating everybody else. Like, Magnus beat Firouzja. Firouzja beat Magnus. All right, Pragg beat Magnus. Pragg beat Firouzja. Firouzja beat, like, everybody, all right, in the first go-around. Now, I would like to show you this game between Gukesh and Wesley So. This was also incredibly complicated, incredibly sharp, an Italian game where black opted to play bishop e7 instead of the move bishop c5, normal. And then bishop b3 was played, so like not even knight c3 or developing a piece or c3 or a4. He went back with his bishop, and Wesley played a very aggressive Italian, which is where you go d5. You trade in the middle, you open the board up. It's not a slow maneuvering game. Black activates his bishop, and Gukesh can win a pawn here. He kicks out the bishop, and he grabs the center pawn. The position here reminds me of a line in the Rui, in the Spanish, called the Marshall variation. It's not exactly the same, But in that line, you know, white gets an extra pawn, but white has some weaknesses near the king. Black can play like bishop d6 and queen h4. And if you want to sound really smart on your next date, ask your date if they know about Marshall compensation. All right? They won't, because that's a weird thing to know off the bat. a3, he repositions, the bishop is going to go to d6, and the queen's going to h4. And that is the way that Wesley is going to get some counterplay in this position. Okay, he kicks out the rook. By the way, Gukesh's rook is just in the middle of the board, just hanging out like a cow on a highway. Bishop takes, pawn takes, his rook goes to b5 attacking a pawn. I mean, his rook can't come home. So, like, it's trying. Now you can play f4 or h4, h5, which is pretty wicked to play chess like this. Gukesh, by the way, just up a pawn, comfortable. Rook b4, allegedly a wrong move. He was supposed to play queen f3 and just leave his rook out there. He tries to bring his rook back, and here comes the counterplay from Wesley with the move f5. Wesley brought his king to the corner to get out of the bishop's way, and now f5 is on the board, and Gukesh is going to potentially suffer for weakening his king. Here comes rook f4. Now the bishop goes back to e8. Wesley is playing just amazing chess. Amazing chess. Bishop on e8. King in the corner, incredible piece coordination. You never see stuff like this. And the bishop repositions to this diagonal. Just like vintage rerouting. Queen g3. Now, this is a gangster move. Black can play g5 here. Wesley goes queen d7, but g5 is always there. Gukesh plays rook d4, and now rook d8. Rook d8's a little passive, but you kind of have to play it. And it looks like Gukesh is just primed to take over the game. I mean, bishop is completely paralyzing the queen. He stabilized this side of the board. This rook is passive. This is passive. The rooks are now on fire. This rook has ran around the board. He's going to win the pawn on d6. Rook f3. Queen h2 back. Wesley still trying to defend himself. The best move here is king f1. It's just an amazing little move. And Gukesh plays king f1. King f1. Just getting out of the way of any danger. If the knight ever landed on f3, it would have been a fork. It's no longer a fork. Honestly, there's like some lines. There's some lines you could float the idea of running the king over here. Not right now, because there would be knight f4 check, which isn't even the best move. There's queen f6 with a fork. But it's just one of those vague ideas. Now, we have knight to e5, bishop f5, and Gukesh goes wrong here. All right, he's got the position, but look at Wesley. Wesley, unlike Magnus, Wesley has been playing fast the whole tournament. Gukesh goes here, that's a mistake. Apparently, instead of that, he needed to go queen h4, maintaining pressure over here, and just kind of keeping his options open, not allowing the queen to get back in the game. But now the game opens up. Wesley sacrifices the rook for defensive purposes. Pawn takes f5 and queen f7. The knight is hanging. Gukesh defends it, but he allows Wesley to win this pawn. And now Gukesh has 6 minutes for the rest of this game. Wesley plays rook f8. Gukesh, c4, but the best move was king e1, just running the king. c4, Wesley tries to undermine Gukesh with b5. Gukesh goes queen g3, also a mistake because it's such a sharp position. He takes the knight. Gukesh takes with the rook. It looks like he's figured everything out. He's going to an endgame. He's got to trade the queens. Wesley takes. Gukesh takes on c4. Now goes queen b1 check. The rook defends, and the queen takes the pawn, which is a mistake. He had to go to c2. But Gukesh takes on d6, and the pawn falls over here. And ultimately, it's a knight and a pawn versus a rook. That's the counterplay. But Gukesh has 50 seconds to 20 minutes. There's a knight check. There's a rook hanging. There's a pawn hanging. The queen is always coming back and targeting the king whenever it wants. Black's king is actually very safe. And this game ends in a shocking way. Gukesh goes here. Wesley plays rook to f5 and offers a draw. Using risk reward there. He offers a draw. Now, it's actually 0-0-0. Which is amazing. And even though Black's king can be attacked, the king goes to h7, there's no attack. And if you play rook e8 and try to play like rook e6 and go queen g6, actually Black will win. Black will win the game. There's too many threats. For example, queen c1, king g2, rook g5, and you would be losing your queen. What? Rook h5 and queen h1 mate. Oh my god, the position is so complicated. So complicated. But that's why Gukesh just accepted the draw. He has a minute, and he has 3 murderous pieces going after his king. He's like, bro, I'm done. I don't want any more of this. I'm done. Let's play Armageddon. And as always, Armageddon is basically like playing backgammon. It is a roll of the dice. It's in English. It's a slow maneuvering game here. Gukesh gets a very equal, chill position from the opening. Queen a4. Wesley's playing fast. Wesley's very, very experienced. Gukesh grabs a pawn. Gukesh absolutely rolls the dice here. Actually, bishop b3 is an amazing move. freezing the position, disallowing white from advancing at all. Instead, knight c6 is played, and things start going wrong here. Wesley plays d5, bishop g2, and he needed to be very precise here because he's down a pawn, but he's not precise. His best move was to accept that this was a strange decision and go king g8, and instead he went here. And I think he just blundered that this was a check. He either blundered that it was a check or he thought he was trapping the queen. He's not trapping the queen, though. The rook goes there, but now the queen can hit the queen, and Gukesh is just up 2 pawns, and Gukesh is just, oh my, this is actually driving me insane today. Oh my goodness. Look at this queen dance. Look at the queen c5, queen b4, queen c3, queen b3, queen d1. And Gukesh escapes. He robs the bank. He gets out like the Joker in Batman. 2 pawn up, advantage, and he's gonna win. He's gonna win. Wesley's not gonna be making a comeback in this one. 2 pawns up. Every Armageddon game's chaotic, and at the end, just for a bonus, Wesley blunders his rook in 1 move. And that is the way the Armageddon concludes. The standings are crazy, so we will take a look at it after we are done taking a look at all the games. On the women's side, we haven't had a lot of decisive victories in classical chess, but we certainly started getting them in the second half of the tournament. Bibisara, fresh off of the candidates tournament, bishop e7, bishop f4, castles, queen c2, and black goes b6. Okay? We have takes, 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 takes. This is the trade, and now a very sharp line from Bibisara, e4. Black is just worse, but black can play bishop b4 and try to... Black will be just worse, unless black responds dynamically and punishes white for overextending with the king with bishop b4 check. Except the top line here is king d1. Now that's pretty freaking brutal. King to d1, and you go queen c6. If you don't remember that queen c6 is the move here, you will never play the move queen c6. Instead, she goes queen a5. That's the wrong move, because white can play a3. Now, a3 is not an attack on the bishop. Instead, you are moving the queen from taking this pawn. So you play a3 and you want to go rook c1 next, so that on the next move it's an attack on the bishop, and the c7 pawn is hanging, and a2 cannot be taken. Bibisara spends some time here and takes the pawn immediately, which is not the best move. It allows black to get some counterplay on the queen side, but it's a very sharp position, and you can tell from the fact that Ju Wenjun spent 32 minutes on the move bishop a6. She was not sure at all. Black has many good choices. Bishop d7, knight a6. She goes bishop a6, which is the best move, but when you spend so much time in the opening, you begin to doubt yourself. Now black can play queen a4 check. She doesn't. She trades the queens and enters a position where after this trade, white is up a pawn, and it's very comfortable. Bishop to b7, white can now play f3, and even though she didn't play f3 in the game, she went bishop d3. Everything is very chill. Bishop d6. All now white has to do is consolidate a little bit, bring the rooks, and just be up a pawn. It's very mercurial compensation. She plays king e2, knight g6, nice move hitting the rook, but more importantly, defending the bishop, rook d8, and Bibisara, absolutely cruising here, trades down into a winning endgame, and it's not even winning, it's not even an endgame, she's just winning, period. I think her opponent had calculated this line. She spent how much time on knight c6? Okay, so her opponent obviously saw this line, takes, d5, and was like, okay, I'm going to go knight d4, which is what happens in the game. Then I'm going to take this pawn. She's going to take, I'm going to take, she's going to go here. I'm going to give her a rook d8 check. And I think what got calculated was something like king e3, f5. But there's just this. And after king f8, rook d1, you're just up a bishop. There is nothing here. I have a feeling Ju Wenjun must have thought like rook d6, but you never win the piece back. King e4, f5 check, king e5. You never win the piece back. She didn't need to do this. She was worse. But in this tactical sequence, you better be sure when you get into something like this that you survive. And black does not survive here. And Bibisara is just up a rook, a bishop. And when you're up a bishop with just rooks on the board, you will win. And she is having an amazing tournament. She has won, no, Not as good as I thought. But she's undefeated in classical chess. Yeah, she's won twice in classical, so her rating is up a lot in classical chess. Now, the next two were decided in Armageddon. Koneru Humpy versus Divya Deshmukh. This one was a Benko Gambit. Divya has played some crazy openings in this tournament. She hits her opponent with a Benko Gambit. A6, E6. Modern Benko Gambit where black takes on D5 and takes on A6, and white is just a pawn up, but black has compensation. In the form of I have no freaking idea what, white goes G3 and castles and queen C2, but it actually works out completely, incredibly for Divya, who after the next 5-6 moves gets a perfect position for a Benko player, and her opponent makes a tactical mistake. Bishop C6. The rook comes back, queen A8, and black is dominating. Bishop E4 is a problem, bishop F3 is a problem. Humpy probably thought this and you simply trade, but after knight G5, black is crushing. White goes rook D1 back. Queen F3 is apparently a mistake. She needed to go rook D8, just wait. White can't move. White can't develop any pieces and will slowly lose the game. She regained a major portion of her advantage. Rook D8, she got a completely dominant position. Knight takes F2 is a very nice tactic. Rook D1 check. She picks this up. Bishop D4 dominant here. She has no material advantage, but white cannot move anything. Now you have to go H5. She goes G5. H5 was better, but they're all around the same. Bishop F4 is a very tactical move. We trade rooks, and you take on B2. But here, Divya is winning outright. She is winning if, before she plays rook takes B2, she plays the move G4. She threatens rook G1, white goes H3, and now you play take, or rook B2, it doesn't really matter. And this position is winning for black, making this trade G for H. The computer thinks this is an easy win with C4, and the pawn goes, and the king is far. But by doing it this way, the king is too close. Had she gone G4 and went for this exact same sequence, like this, the pawn is promoting. King G4, C4, something like King F3, C3, Bishop E5, Bishop A1, and you push, and you win. Just straight up win the game. King E2, C2, Bishop F4, Bishop E2. Black wins. Divya has a win on the board. She doesn't play it, and Humpy Koneru comes back into this game and holds a draw. And Divya, when she game reviews this, is going to be very unhappy. She had to play G4, one pawn move. White has only one defense to not get mated, and she's going to win the endgame because her king is going to be too close, too far. Crazy. And we go to Armageddon, and ultimately, in the Armageddon, Divya runs it back. She plays the Benko once again, and the Benko is difficult to play, period. But to play it with 7 minutes on the clock, you can get a good position, but the Benko's the Benko. It's very tough to get rid of entirely. Humpy in this game allows black to take over the initiative with the rooks in the middle, H3, knight C2, and Divya gets much-deserved revenge. Humpy has struggled in the Armageddon, and she just goes down material here. This can be taken, but then there's knight takes E2, rook D1. This is check, and also this is hanging, and also that's under pressure. Divya wins the Armageddon, but let me tell you, she would have traded an Armageddon loss for a classical win. One pawn move, just brutal. And yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. Ju Wenjun and Muzychuk, these two always providing some nice positional games. I'm kind of going through this one a little fast. Black in this game chooses a path from the opening to equalize that is not the best. She allows Ju Wenjun to play on the queenside majority, the 3-on-2. You have a opportunity maybe to swap the queens with queen d5 or play bishop e3 and just apply a lot of pressure. And that's what she's going to do. She plays rook c4, and then she plays bishop g5, and she's doing a nice job. Black is under a lot of pressure, and now black is also a pawn down. Rook e8, queen a4 here, trading the queens. She's just crushing. She's flying. h6, bishop, back. Just a great game. you know, white needs to kind of put into the second gear here. But there is no second gear here. You just get into time trouble and win the pawn and, you know, the piece endgame on the other side of the board. White has to, you know, demonstrate some technique to win this game. She's going to get a big chance in a few moves. She has to push the pawn. Rook d7 here was winning. It was winning because you attack the knight and it has nowhere comfortable to go. For example, if it goes to b6, after rook d6, knight c4, bishop takes h6, wins a pawn. And that is a major problem, that if the knight goes to b6, you have this and bishop takes h6, winning yourself a second pawn. And if rook d7 and the knight goes like to e7, you have b6, b7. And when the pawn gets that far, it can't be stopped. The bishop is going to go to f4, you can just resign. So rook d7, rook d6 is the winning idea here with bishop takes h6 for white. She misses it. Black gets a little bit of counterplay. Still, black is worse. Black is suffering. Suddenly, the pawn has been stopped. Winning this pawn is okay, but it wasn't as good as the other one. And actually, Anna Muzychuk just gets her pieces back in time, and the game ends in a draw. Game ends in a draw. Nothing white can do here. Tough. Tough. What can I say? Ju Wenjun also having a chance. And this one, this Armageddon, was very solid. It was it was not even a Vienna. I don't even know what this is called. Like a King's Indian attack-ish. But yeah, this game was very chill until it fell off a cliff. So equal. Some small advantage here for black, but rook e8, just equal. White wins a pawn. White tries to trade away the bishop. Okay, white has a bishop and 2 pawns for a rook. It's around equal. Muzychuk goes e4, trying to force the issue. And knight d4 just loses. It loses because, yes, there is knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, but the queen is trapped. You have trapped your own queen by moving knight d4. Instead, you had to play queen d5 check first. The queen is trapped, black plays rook e5, and the queen is gone. The queen can't move anywhere. And she takes, and Muzychuk is able to win the game in 3 or 4 moves. And, oh, also the bishop's hanging. That's really brutal. And black wins. But, again, Armageddon, Schmarmageddon. I keep forgetting to change the standings. The results. Bibisara with a classical win. 3 points for her. Before that, she had 9.5. Divya only gets 1.5. She's still in second. Muzychuk 9.5, 9. We have a clear 4 people. But if Humpy wins a game in classical, just like amongst the gentlemen, anything can change. And the gents are, 3 of them have 9 points. If somebody can beat Wesley So in classical, they will overtake him or get very close. I don't think so, though. I think he's about to lock it down. If Wesley even loses 3 more games in Armageddon, that's 15.5 points. Somebody's going to have to win in classical 2 or 3 times to catch him. So good luck, you know? That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.